The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina sometimes deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provided a list of content warnings in the episode description. Hello and welcome to Dead Ends. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And we have 2 episodes of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina for you.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see all of our moving boxes.
Yeah, look at all those. How exciting it is.
What a mess. We're
This
so
is going to
sorry.
be the last one in this place.
Oh, yeah, the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Unless we somehow decide in the midst of packing up the rest of our boxes that we're
This
going to get ahead a week.
Well, we do move on the day we usually record. We'll have to decide. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Probably not, though.
This is probably the last time. Is the last time you'll see this.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
She is beauty. She is grace.
Exactly. She's filled with boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we got a lot to cover this week outside of boxes, so why don't we jump into the cast?
All right.
Pause while I get things set up.
My tech support, he's never ready.
I know it. It's like, oh, the energy into the thing, and then I have to reach over and click buttons.
You could probably just like edit out the pause and then they could just like think we had energy the whole time.
No, they got to see everything.
We're offering
And I'm also lazy.
real energy. We're offering like reality. This is not perfect. This is not your Instagram filtered life. This is
No.
not edited for TikTok. This is what you see is what you get.
We have boxes and pauses in our podcast.
Deal with it.
That's right. If you don't like the unvarnished truth, well, this is what it's like.
It's just really mundane. Kind of boring. It's weird. We're not super successful.
I know. Tell your friends.
You're going to have to clip that.
deadendspcast. At dead_ends on YouTube. Anyways, let's get into the cast like we mentioned. Lady Constance Blackwood is played by Alvina August. So a person that an actor that gets pulled into the CW verse because also becomes Detective Karen Hart in 16 episodes of the Nancy Drew series, which is like about 1 year after this. But also has some other was in 1 episode of The Boys as Monique. So not Gen V, but in The Boys of Universe. But was also in multiple Haley Dean mystery movies. Now, this is a Hallmark series like of TV movies, all based around Haley Dean.
Who's that?
She's the character, the main character of the mysteries.
Okay, cool. So I don't know her.
No, But funnily enough, she also played a witch in 1 episode of Supernatural.
Oh, I never watched that.
I didn't either. That completely missed me.
Me too. Isn't that weird?
I think no.
I was only watching Gilmore Girls at that point in my life and the final seasons of Seventh Heaven. Those were like the things on the CW or WB. Was Gilmore Girls might have been WB.
Yeah, and then they had 1 season on the CW.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is what I remember when UPN, because when we did Veronica Mars, Veronica Mars got 1 season on the CW before it got canceled.
Which is just cruel.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that season wasn't great. I will give them that.
Okay. But
Yeah.
you should have let them drive fully into the brick wall.
Totally.
Why would you remove the brick wall?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the car? The metaphor is kind of muddled.
Yeah, maybe the vehicle that actually takes them there. All right, we'll get on to the next person.
It's going to be a good episode. I can feel it in my bones.
That's right. Dr. Cerberus is played by Alessandro Giuliani.
You know what I got to say? I love a man with eyeliner.
Yeah, and he chooses to put that on every day. He chose to make this his business.
You don't think most men who wear eyeliner choose to put it on every day? You don't think the guys in the punk bands with the eyeliner aren't choosing that?
No, what was I trying to say? Because that didn't come out right.
No, I didn't mean to
No, you're right.
like that they wake up. Like, imagine if you're in a punk rock band, if you're a guy, you just wake up in the morning with black. They probably wake up with eyeliner on because I'm sure they don't take it off. But
Gerard Way always just looks like that, and he's like, "Well, I just kind of lead this band then."
he got his eyeliner tattooed on.
Exactly. He's like, "Well, my hair just went white." Think of a very specific time. Anyways, Alessandro is a Canadian actor and singer. So there you go.
Oh.
But is known for playing Felix Gaeta in Battlestar Galactica. I'm naming off things I haven't seen. These are big things. Emil Hamilton in Smallville. Speaking of another superhero
show I
WB
missed.
show.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say this is Jacopo Sinclair. I don't remember this character, but they were on the 100.
I wonder what season.
Yeah, I didn't double check.
I mean, it honestly could have been like early. I don't remember anything. I only remember Bellamy and Clark. And then like one other girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have very hazy memories of it. But it's also a voice actor. So for people that know these anime, he is the dub English voice for L in all the Death Note things, including the live action ones that are brought over here. Was Toma in Ranma 1/2? I don't know. I haven't read or watched Ranma 1/2, but this is the... I'll have to double check. I think it's the 90s one, not the recent reboot. But was also Gambit in X-Men Evolution, Mon Ami. And then was in 2 of the Bionicle films. Speaking of things that also miss me.
I don't know what those are.
Oh, Bionicle was a spin-off of Lego. It was a product of Lego. It was a product line where it's like there are these action figures that are kind of not like specifically like the Lego figurine, like the little people in Legos. They were like built out. They kind of look like they're supposed to be like robots or something.
Okay.
And then they had this like huge backstory behind it where they had comics in like the Lego Magazine Monthly. And I heard all about this on a recent, I think it was Remap Radio. Someone wrote in that the guy who was put in charge with it just ran wild. And so they had like movies, like it was, and I think they had a game also. Like it was a big multimedia project in the 2000s. And then he just wrote all this wild ass lore, and then eventually it just, kind of
petered out.
Didn't get as much interest. But it was a huge multimedia project.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard of those.
I like my Bionicle. I watched the first movie with some friends. I remember that.
Oh, okay, so you did see these. You know what they existed.
Yeah, but I don't remember anything about it.
Okay.
All right, Uncle Jesse is played by Jason.
Bowden.
Bowden? Yeah, I think you're right there. Also, it was big in getting parts in the DC superhero shows. Was in the Legends of Tomorrow, in Supergirl, and also in the recent Superman and Lois. But was also in one episode of The 100 in 2017. So we definitely were not watching that by that point.
No.
Yeah, but I'm like, gotta shout it out. And finally, Ruth Walker is played by L. Scott Caldwell. I was like, she looks so familiar. She plays Rose on Lost. Big time. Hell yeah. We love Rose.
Never seen Lost, but I said that like I did. I was like,
You're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, Rose.
Oh, good for you. You recognize her from that show.
That's a big
program.
Part.
It was. Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Eventually we'll get to it. We'll see her again.
I live in fear of when we do Lost.
I'm so excited for
Lost.
Lost.
Like the frustration in my soul when we do Lost.
So someone posted every now and then people.
But I think because I know it's bad. Does that make sense? Like not bad, but you know what I mean. Like I'm gonna come into it just like for the ride.
Yeah, I think you'll at least have some fun with it, if not roll your eyes at some of the ways they treat the women on that show. Not as in like this is like this horrible thing that happened to this woman. Of just like this is how you wrote the woman, really.
Mm-hmm.
But there's someone posted a clip. They're like watching through it where one of the characters is yelling at like some just bit actors like get down, and then someone gets shot, and then another person runs in and he yells at him again to get down, and they get shot. Then another person runs in. It happens 3 times.
Good God.
See, I think we'll have some fun. Anyways, L. Scott Caldwell was also one of the U.S. Marshals in The Fugitive, but she has a really long theater career. So I thought that was really cool. I'm like really doing a high level summary of like was a teacher, did local theatrical productions, eventually moved to New York, and was doing enrolled in like different groups and things there. Was part of NEC, which is like a black like group. So and her career extended from essentially like 74 through 2017. And this part I had to pull out. So in 1984, while working in a play of giants, she was struck by a car in New York and suffered severe back injury and wasn't able to work for 2 years. But then her first audition after her recovery was in Come and Gone, and her performance got her a Tony Award in 1988. So good for her.
That's insane.
I know. That's such a wild story.
Good God.
But recently was in the Vince Vaughn, I think it's like an Apple TV Plus show, Bad Monkey. But, still out there, still doing work. But that's it for this week.
If you were like a big theater person, I feel like it makes total sense to then be like, and then towards like the later part of your career to really move back to or move to television because it's just like less intense. Like in terms of like there's more pause. Does that make sense? Like there's a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can cut. There's a break. There's less. I assume it requires a different kind, but like a little bit less from you because also like when you perform on a stage, everything has to be so much bigger versus like screen acting is like a little more subtle usually. Yeah,
and I will say, yeah, it is easier to continue to be able to do afterwards.
Like literally, like just physically or like energy wise.
Mm-hmm. And
like I'd be tired if I was on the stage every day. I'd be tired. I'm tired now, and I'm not on the stage every day.
Yeah, I didn't pull a bunch of things working her the credits, but she was also doing like lots of small parts and roles in television and film. So yeah, big CV. But especially like when I said her theater career ended, her last credit was 2017. So I think it makes more sense. It's like, yeah, I could go do Sabrina. And that's like, to your point, like much easier than having to be on a play and do it for multiple runs in a week and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm like that. Like that'd be the move. Like for me, I'd be like, yeah, I did my big theater thing, and now gonna go hang out. And then like if a role came up and you want to do it, or it's a smaller part, or if it's a big part, I don't know. She could have amazing energy levels. Totally. I know nothing about this woman in particular. I just in general, I'm like, oh. Mm-hmm. I see that transition making sense.
Absolutely. You're like, I'll go do some genre TV if I can.
Yeah.
All for it. Okay. On to the summary. Chapter 6, An Exorcism in Greendale. A couple trivia facts from it. Zelda calls on Spellman ancestors, and she calls out the names Evanora and Lacosta, which are the names of the Wicked Witch of the East and the Good Witch of the North in the Land of Oz franchise. So the books. And this is wild because we did have to go look this up because I'm like, okay, fandom's bullshitting me here. But Harvey, where he's wearing the headphones and he's got his crop top sitting in the bed, the fandom was like, oh, this is a reference to Johnny Depp's look in A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm like, no, it's not. And then we looked it up. I'm like, oh my God.
It's like a direct copy.
It really is. But yeah, the comparison is truly wild. I mean, fuck Johnny Depp. He's a terrible person. But Nightmare on Elm Street was the first horror movie to really, really freak me out.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's good. I do like I must have watched it again in college, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of deal with this a bit more. But the thing that freaked me out as a kid was because I was always told it's like if you're scared, like that's just in your imagination. If you're able to get yourself to go to sleep, like scared before you go to it, like it'll all be fine because you just watched something that kind of freaked you out.
Who gave you that advice? That's horrible because I have horrible nightmares and I always have.
Oh, well, see, then you watch Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm like, oh, he goes into your dreams. Well, now I don't want to go to sleep. Bat. Yeah. Uh-huh. And yeah. Exactly like the Batty Bat. Except he's not, like, putting you to sleep. He's just there.
I have horrible nightmares to begin with, so maybe this movie wouldn't scare me at all.
Oh, yeah, maybe. There you go. Yeah. We'll cue it up after this. A nice little nighttime movie.
Oh, we're not going to watch it before bed. I gotta go night-night.
Nothing better.
I gotta do my mimes.
That's true. It's Mimi time, not Freddy time.
It's late in the day already.
It is. Yeah. This is what we have to do, Working late. All right. Sabrina tells Wardwell she's not there for snacks. She's there for the truth. And Wardwell tells Sabrina that she's a witch and has been protecting her and watching her from afar. Sabrina's like, well, you'll answer to this in front of the high priest. And Wardwell's like, oh, I didn't happen to mention that your dad asked me to do this, so maybe don't go to them. I was his acolyte / secretary. I'd been excommunicated from my old coven, the Church of Shadows in New Hampshire. Those damn New Hampshireans. Because she loved a mortal. Oh, interesting. And she was eager to work with Edward because she'd heard about his reputation. Wardwell takes the perfect tact of letting Sabrina tell her what she was doing and agreeing to it. She's like, yes, that's exactly what I was doing, Sabrina. Yes. And her aunts were never to know about Wardwell watching over Sabrina, like outside the circle, a special person to help protect her. And Sabrina tells her anyway to stay away from her from now on. Sabrina vents to Ambrose about this, and he's like, well, she did help us with Batty Bat. Maybe you should give her the benefit of the doubt. And Sabrina's like, I don't know what to do yet. Harvey has an intense art session when he sees Uncle Jesse in his room, and he's like, you'll die.
An intense art session?
That's right.
Harvey's drawing.
But it's pretty intense.
Brendan's being paid by the word.
He was drawing, but he had...
Like Dickens.
Right.
He's having an intense moment with his pencil and paper. An art session of major intensity.
How many words is that? Okay, we got to fit a few more here. And he sees Uncle Jesse call him a coward and tells him he'll die from his fear. His brother Tommy then breaks the vision, and Harvey pretends to be okay. Roz gets a midnight snack and sees Uncle Jesse in the kitchen, who says that she'll lose her sight because she doesn't have faith, and then she drops her milk, and it turns into worms. And Uncle Jesse... I already mentioned that she'll be blind. Susie has her own vision of Uncle Jesse, who calls her an abomination and boy girl and says he will smite her. And then the vision disappears, and Susie goes to check on Uncle Jesse, who's still tied to the bed. Hilda applies to work at Dr. Cerberus's and interviews with him, and they get along famously. Zelda has an appointment with the Blackwoods to check on the baby. Faustus is annoying and involved, so Zelda shoos him out. Constance says it's been a trying time for them because of the previous miscarriage, and she says Faustus wants a son. The mortal friends talk about Susie's uncle and attacking Harvey. Harvey wants them to call an exorcist. Sabrina's curious because it sounds like all the otherworldly stuff. Since Jesse also saw something in the mines. Roz tells everyone about her vision, and Harvey and Susie say they saw it too, but then Sabrina tries to play it cool and is like, there's got to be explanations for all this. But Harvey is dead set on that, and later he's like, why don't you believe me? Sabrina continues to doubt him, and he tells her he wants her to just believe him, and he storms off, and Wardwell stops Sabrina to talk, but Sabrina walks away. Sabrina comes home and tells her aunties that Uncle Jesse is possessed by a demon. Zelda says actual possession is extremely rare, Sabrina. Zelda tells her not to be involved with mortal affairs, but tells them not to touch possess because they'll be vulnerable to attacks. Sabrina's like, oh shit, they all touched him when they tied him down. Sabrina asks Ambrose with help to astral project. He tries to tell her not to do this, but she's like, it'll be quick, and like, I won't have a body for the demon to enter. They get in a fight because she mentions Jesse being trapped, and Ambrose gets sensitive about it because he's like, well, I'm trapped here. And he tells Sabrina to astral project on her own, which she goes and does with Salem's help, and goes into Jesse's room. She asks what the demon wants. He says he wants to spoil humans and wants to go after her friends when he's done with Jesse, and also makes reference that Jesse was chosen because he was gay. He tells Sabrina his name is, Mirasakai. And writes it on the little window. He throws up acid on her, but realizes she's not even in the room. Jesse comes to without the demon, and Sabrina starts to choke. Salem then runs to get help and gets Ambrose, and he's like, what is it, boy? Sabrina's in the well?
She's doing the thing that I told her not to do that we knew she was going to do anyway?
Oh, and I left her to do it on her own? He comes in and brings Sabrina back to her body.
This is the same man that tried to blow up the Vatican. No wonder he was not successful.
Yes.
My dear
100%.
friend.
She wonders how the demon could even touch her, and he's like, well, some demons, he must be a higher level demon because some can touch an astral body. Ambrose doesn't know any demon by that name, Mirasakai, but realizes that he gave Sabrina's false name because Mirasakai is ice cream spelled backwards. Sabrina says the demon said Uncle Jesse set him free, and Ambrose wonders from where, which gives her an idea. Sabrina goes to Harvey and says she believes him. He's like, I knew it. It was fishy you were acting weird at school. And Sabrina wants to go to the mines to find a clue where Jesse was working last. Harvey's like, well, we could ask Tommy, but he worries about her going down there. Harvey sees a vision of Uncle Jesse in the corner, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a coward." Starts pumping himself up, and he's like, "I'm going with you." Sabrina and Harvey go to the mines and start searching around. They split up, and Sabrina finds a broken stone tablet. She runs to go find Harvey and drops her flashlight and finds Wardwell there. She tells Sabrina the mines are very dangerous and notices the trapping stone, quote unquote, that Sabrina picked up. Sabrina tells her she'll report her to the high priest if she follows her again. Harvey screams out, and Sabrina goes to find him. He got freaked out because he thinks he saw the beast, but turns out it was the beast carved in stone, which is still very scary when you see it in the dark mines.
It's also like, who's carving these in here?
That's true. And she's like, it's just fine. It's just a statue.
Oh, wait, but we know who's carving them, who carved them, because who were the hill people before? We'll get to this in the next episode.
Oh, I see. The witches?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, right. Because they owned the mines.
Yeah, and they got driven out of the mines by the mortals.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad. I would have never put that together. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. That's what a degree in English literature can do for you.
I'm like, damn, guess I just won't know.
And it will remain a mystery.
That's right.
Do you ever think like there's so many things that like you've just like, never put together?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every now and then you put something together and you're like, oh.
What was it that I recently put together that was like in the name, and I was like, I've never thought about that before.
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, damn.
It'll come back to us.
Yeah, but it was like it. Then the brand name for something was like, oh, this is actually based on like what they do, and I'd never thought about that before.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So there you go. She tells Harvey he was so brave because he came down with her, and then as they leave together, we see the beast watching them. Susie overhears her dad talking to a man to put Jesse in care. Susie's dad tells the man about Jesse's struggle, but then really focuses on his struggles with his sexuality. Out of line. And then Susie comes down and is like, that's out of line. Why the hell aren't you talking about like the pustules on his face and throwing up everywhere and the violent outbursts?
The mines.
Her dad says he needs more help than we can give him, and Susie wants to see the place where they're going to send him to make sure it's okay. Roz gets her eyes checked. The doctor says her condition is progressing and that surgery wouldn't give her much of a chance. She gets upset, so her dad talks to her alone, and she's like, I think God is punishing me. And he's like, she's like, well, you always said that about that's why Grandma went blind, because she didn't have faith. And he's like, well, yeah, but you have faith. This is a really good thing to teach your children.
See, this is like one of my big pet peeves is like when people say shit like this, like, oh, well, that's God punishing them, or like they deserve that or whatever, because like the person you're speaking about often doesn't hear you say that. Usually it's about like famous people or even people that just aren't in the room when you're talking shit. But the people you're with are the ones that hear that and they internalize that shit. And especially, children, when you raise small minds around that, little minds, not as in small minded, but like little brains around that, it's not good, because then they grow up believing that like, oh, if I do evil, then I will get cancer or go blind or lose my leg. I don't know, like whatever. But it becomes this whole belief that these disabilities are punishments. And that's one, really dehumanizing to the people that have them. Two, like just fear mongering for what? Like it also makes them like afraid of these things, which isn't good. And it's insane. And if your God is that person, he's a vindictive motherfucker, and I don't want anything to do with him.
Old Testament.
Yeah, not my dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Wild in Roz's case, it's just like, well, you gotta have faith, or else, well, you'll go blind.
Yeah, and like that's why Grandma went blind, but you're just going blind for natural reasons.
A wild thing to say about a member of your family.
Presumably his mother.
Yeah. Or his mother-in-law, and he's like, I didn't like her anyway.
His mother, because if it was his wife's mother, then she would have also gone blind, because it's the women.
Oh, you're right. She sees Demon Jesse in the corner. Sabrina finds that the demon's name is Apothis and talks to Ambrose about trapping the demon in the stone. At the Academy of Unseen Arts, Sabrina asks Faustus during class if witches can perform exorcisms, and he's like, no. And Prudence says that it's a Catholic rite, so why would we do that? She tells him about Apothis' possession, and Faustus says Apothis' possessions don't last long because he eats his host from the inside out, and it'll jump to another. Sabrina asks what would witches do to get rid of a demon, and Faustus is like, well, big demons like Apothis requires an exorcism, which witches can't do. Class ends, and Nick asks to talk about it, and he flirts with her. She's like, I have a boyfriend. He's like, I'm cool with sharing.
He's like, well, you've got your mortal boyfriend. You can have your witch boyfriend. Yeah. And I'm like, oh. Nick is the perfect character for your Why Choose novel.
Absolutely. He's like, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, he's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet if you were like, but you can't have a girlfriend, Nick would probably be cool with it too.
Yeah.
So, as long as he's happy.
Exactly. He seems interested, and if he's interested, yeah.
You know what?
He's all game.
I'm into it. I think it's hot.
Oh, I completely understand.
I mean, personally, I want one partner max.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only do one thing at a time.
Appreciate it.
But
I understand you got your romance partner here who's just like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why, Sabrina? If you're gonna be two people, be two people.
Mm-hmm. She can't say she isn't tempted. Sabrina comes home and finds Wardwell with the aunties. The aunties say, it was just like Edward to have a plan just like this. Sabrina threatens to get help from the Catholic Church for the exorcism. And Wardwell says Edward actually wrote down, funnily enough, Edward actually wrote down a right for witches to perform exorcism, and she has the right here. Oh, wow. Wardwell says she'll accompany Sabrina to the exorcism, and Hilda agrees to go along as well because she's already been excommunicated, so what else can it do? Edward's rite requires the power of the individual witch to battle the demon instead of getting power from God. Zelda is upset. Sabrina is trusting Wardwell instead of her, but Sabrina says she left her no other choice. The witch trio heads to the Putnams while Zelda paces upset. Ambrose gives Zelda a urine sample from Constance. We'll get that later. And Zelda vents about the trio going to the exorcism. The exorcism begins. They call forth the power of the witches before them, like Lilith, Morgan Le Fay, Anne Boleyn, Hecate, Circe. And then Apophis floats in the air, and Sabrina starts to worry. But then Zelda comes in and is like, no, Sabrina, you're powerful, and helps her. And then Jesse throws up a little dune worm, and Wardwell wraps it up and runs out. Wardwell throws Apophis down a well along with the trapping stone and says it'll burrow down into hell where it belongs. Sabrina thanks Zelda for coming along, and Zelda says the first witch exorcism I just had to see for educational purposes, of course, and then grounds Sabrina. Sabrina invites Wardwell in for tea, but Wardwell declines. But then Sabrina thanks her for her help. The women come inside and find Faustus there. He's like, I just knew you were all going to get up to an exorcism, and threatens to excommunicate them. And Zelda's like, well, I got the results of your wife's test. Constance is expecting twins. It could be a very difficult pregnancy, but I'll tend to her every need, unless you find me or my family unworthy. The next morning, Ambrose vents about being stuck at home. Luke is apparently not returning his calls, and Hilda gets the phone, and it's the Putnams calling. She received news that Jesse died during the night. Susie visits Sabrina. Susie thinks it's better that he didn't have to go to a care facility. Sabrina notices that she's wearing a dress. It's like, I don't think I've ever seen you in one before. And Susie says quietly to herself that she's not an abomination and she won't be one, and gets up and leaves. Sabrina hears and goes like, no, you're definitely not. Why would you say that? Luke enters Dr. Cerberus's, where Hilda is now working, and she gets excited. And puts a little love potion in his coffee. Sabrina visits Wardwell, upset that Jesse couldn't be saved. She says, you saved his soul, that's a victory, and you made him whole. We get a flashback where Wardwell visited Jesse the night before, tells him he had served a greater purpose, because Sabrina had to perform an exorcism on a mortal as part of the Dark Lord's plan. She takes a Jesse voodoo doll and crushes his heart. Back in the present, Sabrina says she still feels like she failed and worries that she won't be able to outwit the Dark Lord, and Wardwell goes, well, whatever do you mean? The end.
Okay, so I did joke a little about like the Nick, like the why choose, but like what I really liked about that Nick scene is that Nick is showing that he accepts both halves of her and is willing to only, like, he's like, fine, I'll take what I can get, but I'm aware of the other half.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Harvey is not aware of the witch's half and therefore can never accept it.
Right.
And I just think
Sabrina takes that option out of his hands.
Yes. And that he's willing, like Nick is willing to let Sabrina be both and still be close to her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also going back to the why choose of why that, like the actual real thing of like why that is like, oh, that's hot. It's because he's prioritizing Sabrina in
her
that
needs.
instance.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's that she doesn't want to make this choice. So he's like, okay, don't make the choice.
Exactly.
We don't have to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, though, of Harvey also, that he gets the inverse like Sabrina. Like Sabrina always worries that Harvey would never believe her, and that if he did find out, she would turn against him. But then she is actively pretending not to believe him, so he gets really upset and hurt by it.
Yes, because she doesn't want to betray like their big secret. And she kind of lets it come in between them. And Harvey is in tune enough to be like, there's something fishy here, but he's not quite in tune enough to know what that is.
No, and he's very gentle. He's just
is.
like, I know that you're for some reason you're very resistant to it, but like I can't stand it.
I think what I thought was really interesting about this episode, it does a really good job because it messes with the supernatural in the mortals world of actually pulling in both of these episodes do a really good job of pulling in the mortals more and kind of like blending those worlds a little bit better.
Yes, absolutely.
Which includes like Hilda getting the job at Dr. Cerberus's because now she's interacting with like the mortal world, and
she gets a fun costume as the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes, but all three of our young mortals, so our Susie, our Rosalind, and our Harvey, they are all dealing with a demon that preys on fear, like demons do. And that they are specifically like fearfully either not living up to like their parents' ideal or idea or concept of them, or that they are not good enough. And this they took like what they were told about other people, presumably. So like what Susie heard about her Uncle Jesse, what Roz heard about her grandma. Presumably, Harvey's dad has probably said horrible things about other men in the mines, and he said it to Harvey directly. Harvey's is very direct.
Yeah.
But they've heard all these things, and so they've internalized them, whether or not they're even about them and whether or not they're accurate, which we know they're not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We get a little glimpse into Harvey's home life in the next one, and it's pretty dire. But no, it's exactly right. It's all this familial trauma that's being put onto him. You know, Harvey, again,
his fear of the mines.
And
then like Susie with her gender dysphoria and like this just feeling like she cannot be who she is, or like even who she is. Like I don't think she is ready to address that as a person because of the way her father has talked about people and the way everyone else has talked about people.
Yep. Because the one thing that her dad starts talking about to the caretaker has absolutely nothing to do with the way that Uncle Jesse is acting in the bed. It's all about like he weirdly focuses on his sexuality.
And
it's just such a weird out-of-pocket thing to do.
And then Rosalind and the shame, like, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Like I'm ashamed of what I am. Obviously, I'm not good enough. Yeah, I don't believe strong enough.
For sure.
And I think like playing with that with religion specifically is like so interesting and strong, and it kind of comes up in the next episode too. Well, it really comes up in the next episode, but it's this idea that like belief is supposed to save you, and if you're not being saved, then you're not believing hard enough, or belief like somehow you're supposed to be chosen because of your level of belief, and if you can believe hard enough, then you win. And that doesn't make any sense. Like it's like you either believe something or you don't. There's no levels to belief. I mean, you know, there's believability if you're like, I'm not sure about that, but like, I believe the grass is green. The grass is green. You know, it's not a belief, it's a fact. And so I think like playing with this like fact versus belief, and kind of how like, am I being punished? Am I good enough? What am I? Do I even believe these things? Like, I think it's a really interesting way to play with religion.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that a lot of at least practitioners and faith and believers and stuff, it's like, oh, I'm being punished because I'm not giving myself fully. It can happen to people where it's like, I'm not giving myself fully over to the church. I am not participating enough. I'm not in this. It's all about, I don't have enough faith in this. So then somehow, because I have not met this threshold of criteria of like, well, I put in my 50 faith points here, and then all of a sudden I'm at gold level. That because it's like, oh, I didn't do my prayers, or I haven't believed, I've doubted the Lord, then I'm now being punished. You said like in the next episode, we'll talk about this more. But
the other thing, is it Apophis? Apophis? Is that how I say it?
I think
Apophis?
So. Yeah.
I don't. So regardless, someone who studied ancient Egypt might know more, because this is an ancient Egyptian god.
Oh.
It is the god that is often in contrast or fighting with Ra, the sun god. And the lore around this usually is that Apophis doesn't want the sun to come. It's trying to stop Ra from rising the sun. And then there's I believe some lore or versions that Apophis is a former sun god that then Ra took over, and so then that's part of their fiction. There's others that don't have that, but so it means devouring worm usually. It's an ancient Egyptian god representing chaos and darkness, usually represented as a snake. One of the few that doesn't really have a non-animal form, really.
Oh, okay.
At least that's what I read.
And that's the snake that would be on the trapping stone too.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
So I thought that was fun.
That is very fun. I have a soft spot for Egyptian mythology, thanks to Yu-Gi-Oh! As a child.
That's so cute.
Being imparted by the, or I guess what do you call it? Egyptophile? I don't know what would be the proper term for it. Someone writing a manga of this stuff's cool.
Fair enough. So speaking of the demon, we have an exorcism, and we have who Batty Bat has called the mother of demons.
Mm-hmm.
Participating at the exorcism. Was the exorcism really Edward's, or is this Miss Wardwell's exorcism plan?
Uh-huh. Yeah, this seems like a Dark Lord plan. It's like
so did the Dark Lord create this exorcism, or did Miss Wardwell? Because it only calls on women. It calls on Hecate. It does not call on the power of the Dark Lord.
Right.
It calls on Hecate. It calls on the Mother of Demons. It calls on Lilith. It calls on the witches. It calls on
the good witch of the north and bad witch of the east.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you're right that Wardwell's the one that came up with it. It's you get the assignment and you take it and you run with it.
Mm-hmm. Or did she already have this? As the mother of demons, has she had to make her demons behave? I don't think
fair.
you can, you don't clicker train your demons. We don't shot collar. I think it's brutal. We would never do that to a demon.
Well, that's what happened to Batty Bat, and that's why Batty Bat wasn't listening.
Yeah, the shot collar didn't work. It was just all bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was just really fun and interesting. I was like, oh, is this yours, Wardwell?
Right. Mm-hmm. The Dark Lord might have given me this plan, but we don't have to do the Catholic exorcism.
No, well, and we don't have to even call on the Dark Lord's powers.
Exactly.
It contrasts the Catholic Church too, which obviously they call on God instead of women.
Which is great.
It is great. I mean, that they call on women instead of God is great. But I thought that was fun. I also really like the way they craft this Wardwell-Sabrina relationship thing. It's Wardwell is at the beginning telling Sabrina a story she knows Sabrina wants to hear. And Sabrina buys it, but is mad about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very funny in comparison to if Sabrina just didn't buy it. She's like, right. That's believable. Witches fall in love with mortals all the time. Look at me. Look at my father. Uh-huh. And it's girl, it's a small sample size.
Right.
It's basically a circle.
It's yeah, exactly. If you're believing this woman, then that makes 3.
Exactly. But so she goes from I trust her, I don't trust her, I trust her because she helps me with this thing. Also, you have the Mother of Demons right there. She's doing nothing to help you. Mm-mm. Zelda came in and helped. Mm-hmm. And then Wardwell kills Jesse Putnam. Is this just to clean up her mess, to make sure that he can't speak on this? Is it just for shits and gigs? Why did we kill Jesse Putnam?
Yeah, maybe just shits and gigs.
Or just
because I don't know what Jesse would
remember. Would you remember being?
What would happen when an exorcism went on?
Yeah, or what happened? That he was that a demon climbed inside of him.
Yeah, because I mean, would you retain what the demon would know of oh, that's the Mother of Demons right there? Would Jesse know that? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe she's just all right, goodbye.
You've done your work.
Yep, we're good. I had to do an exorcism. Ugh, I hate it. So at least I get to kill someone. Yay.
Zelda plays with power in this one, and I like it. Zelda is oh, okay, Blackwood. You need my help, but you frown upon my family. Really seeing Zelda kind of take power and control, and when Zelda loves, it's so protective and fierce. I love that. I think that makes her a really fun, interesting character. And Absolutely. Of course, she's played so well because, it's just amazing. And so you're like, okay, like she's so good at being like the like cold, but like, well, I have to like go after them, or like that I can't let them hurt my family.
Yeah, she goes to the mat for him and then does the like, oh well, I didn't do it for you. But yeah, her playing hardball with Faustus is a great turn of like after kind of like fawning over him. So it's like, oh well, I can push back. I have like some wiggle room here.
And who really has the power? And it plays with that gender power dynamic again. Like he came to her for help, so now she's got the upper hand.
Exactly.
And she knows that twins and it's dangerous, and there's a 13-month pregnancy, which I thought was funny.
Oh, I missed 13 months.
The 13 months.
Hilarious.
13 months.
Add it to the list.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too was Hilda putting the love potion in Luke's drink. Okay, like morally not great, but like, do we love it? Yeah, it gives practical magic, the movie.
Yeah, it totally does. Aunties just love
meddling.
Exactly.
And then at the very end of the episode, Sabrina mentions to Wardwell that she wants to outwit the Dark Lord. It was just very casually.
Yeah, and then Wardwell's like, excuse?
But like, we don't really see the fallout from that conversation.
No,
Is Wardwell going to tell the Dark Lord?
I assume she would, well, next time she got a visit, because I don't think she's really ringing up the Dark Lord. It seems like it's a pretty intense situation when she talks to him.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'll talk to him when I talk to him, and maybe I'll tell him.
I see. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I got you. I agree.
Yeah. You know, do you really want your boss? You know, you're gonna
like a micromanager.
Exactly. You're gonna bring the project as much as close, and then you're like, okay, now I can bring my boss back in on this.
There we go. Any other thoughts on this episode?
No. I think we're good. Ready to move on to the next one then?
Yeah.
All right, Chapter 7, The Feast of Feasts. So, apparently the pizza guy is Ben Button from Riverdale. So this is the first time we get a crossover. The pizza guy that shows up at Wardwell's.
But is that a character at all in Riverdale?
Apparently in the background. I've seen him on the credits.
Oh.
So yeah.
I don't remember him.
Yeah, he's just kind of around in the back, I guess.
Well, then he gets killed by Wardwell.
Anyways, Harvey walks Sabrina home. They talk about Thanksgiving traditions. Harvey talks about how he's going to be brought into the Kinkle manly beer drinking and hunting since he's working in the mines now.
You know what I don't recommend? Drinking and shooting guns together. A lot of men do it, and do men make good decisions? No.
She invites him in, but sees guts nailed to the door, so sends him home. She asks what's up with that, and Zelda says it means our family's been selected in the Coven Feast of Feast. It's a tradition meant to honor Sister Freya. She was part of the original 14 sisters of the Church of Night who were chased out of Greendale, and they're all left to starve during a terrible winter. Like, the townspeople literally hunted all the animals in the area. So Freya gave up her body for the family to eat. For the Feast of Feast, 14 women get chosen, and only women, and the queen who wins gets to be eaten by the coven. Zelda plans to represent the family at the drawing, and Sabrina worries she'll get picked and doesn't want to lose her because she already lost her mom and dad. And Zelda's like, "That's so kind, but I've already been chosen. I'm gonna do this."
And like we get picked for this before, and we never get chosen. The Dark Lord never calls on us to be eaten.
It won't happen this year. Which doesn't. Wardwell teaches history about Greendale and asks Harvey when his family came to town. He's like, I don't know. And when they came to own the mines. And he's like, oh, good question.
Harvey might have yearned for the mines, but Harvey has never asked why the mines? How the mines?
We just do the mines.
Where did the mines come from? How did we end up with the mines? Have we always had the mines? That doesn't make sense. I'm white and I'm in America.
Harvey's got a lot to learn.
Harvey's unpacking.
I literally I didn't realize that the Kinkles own the mines until this episode.
Yeah, they own the mines.
I'm like, damn, and they're working in it? I'm pretty sure Elon was not down in the emerald mines.
Well, I think coal mines and emerald mines are a little different. Are these coal mines?
I believe. God knows. Yeah. That was the first thing that came to mind of a family that owned mines. Sabrina asked Wardwell after class about Feast of Feast and asked to opt out of it. Wardwell says, well, I don't know how you can get out of it, but I can do some research. Harvey asks his grandpa if they've always been miners. He's like, no, we used to be the Von Kunkels.
And the hunters and gatherers.
We used to hunt until this terrible winter where these people that lived in the hills said that they got their said that we stole their land, and the townspeople got scared and the Von Kunkels got rid of them. Harvey asks what they did, and Grandpa says, well, you're coming home with us. I'll show you. What happened?
He doesn't ever show him what happened.
No. He just says, shoot that deer, boy. Susie looks into her history, and they find a picture of Dorothea, who is their first ancestor in Greendale. And Susie's like, oh, she's wearing men's clothes. And her dad's like, I guess it used to be a thing back then.
No, he's like, yeah, because she didn't feel safe, like, as a woman on the frontier. I didn't think he said it, like, weird.
He does eventually when Susie I remember him having a weird connotation about it.
I thought he was just like, well, yeah, because she felt safer doing that because she was a woman alone. She lived alone for a while, and so she, like, a woman being on the frontier.
He's like, I could have sworn at some point he makes a reference like, yeah, like, I guess that used to be more okay back then or something.
I don't remember that.
All right, maybe I'm making things up. But Susie goes
I hate to credit a man, but
he was all right in this instance.
Yeah, I don't know if he was bad. I might have missed it.
But you got all the rest of the details there, so I assume you're right. And Susie goes to read Dorothea's journals. Roz goes to visit her Nana. Roz asks about family history, and Nana says, I thought you were coming because you were worried you didn't have faith. And Roz wonders how she knew about that, and Nana says, because of the cunning. Should we do cunning corner? Yeah, I don't have much to say. The first time I watched this, I'm like, okay, we're playing with the real magical black people trope here, and it's also playing with The Shining from Stephen King, which is essentially supernatural abilities where you're kind of like, it's also like, it's psychonetic, but you can also see things from the other side of the veil, so you see ghosts and things like that. They're kind of combining that with what was called cunning folk. Let me pull that up here that I found. They're like folk healers and practitioners like folk medicine and different like crafts and things there. Their practices were known as the cunning craft, but their services, funnily enough, because they later talk about like why they go blind, included thwarting witchcraft. So there's like in the section on Wikipedia on America, there's like a little piece that archaeologists found, which was like a what was it? A witch bottles, which is supposed to protect you from witchcraft. So they're playing with like this like history of like folk medicine and healers and stuff like that. But keep an eye on there. It's not quite the same thing that Nana and Roz specifically have here. They're kind of combining the two. And at least as far as I can tell in my research, but you can chime in the comments if there's more of a history to the cunning than I could find. And she tells Roz the cunning is a sixth sense that helps us to see things, and it manifested in her when she was around Roz's age, and Roz's should be manifesting soon. Prudence is one of the 14 tributes, and the other weird sisters are jealous. Sabrina doesn't understand why she'd want to be sacrificed, and Prudence is like, there is no greater honor. Agatha and Dorcas are obsessed that an orphan like Prudence could potentially be queen. Sabrina asks Nick what he thinks about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm not cool with the Feast of Feasts, and Edward banned it when he was in charge, but Faustus brought it back. And Sabrina wonders if her aunt would feel differently if she was one of the tributes. Sabrina, that is.
I love having Nick as just like the like great way to fill us in on like context and lore. Mm-hmm. And as like Edward Spellin's #1 fan.
Exactly.
He's like, well, your dad didn't like it, and neither do I.
And I'm in the county. Yeah, exactly. I can provide the other viewpoint to this of like,
Let me tell you what I think you'll agree with.
100%. The Feast of Feast drawing. Everyone's gathered at the church. The tributes draw their lotteries when Sabrina interrupts and asks to draw instead of Zelda. Zelda steps down angrily. Everyone finishes drawing papers and burns them over the candles. Prudence's burns gold, meaning she is queen. Sabrina's burns red. Later, Zelda is upset with Sabrina, and turns out Sabrina got chosen as the queen's handmaiden and must indulge the queen's every whim while the rest of the coven fast before the feast. The Spellman doorbell rings.
But Zelda's mad because Sabrina volunteered and because she was almost chosen, because being the handmaiden's kind of like being second. Like she's not like no thank you,
Right, exactly. Like you at least
you were
are
on
like
the list.
You're like, yeah, you're part of the tradition.
Mm-hmm.
The Spellman doorbell rings, and Prudence comes in after flirting with Ambrose. We love it. Prudence heads upstairs and requests a bath and macarons. Prudence takes a bath while Sabrina has to scrub her. Sabrina tries to tell her not to go through with this and would help her escape, and Prudence says she wouldn't want to escape because she'll be transubstantiated, which is a Catholic belief. So for people who don't know, when in Mass, we receive these little wafers up at the front, and that's everybody takes communion, and it's supposed to be represent the body of Christ.
No, it's not supposed to represent.
It's supposed to be
because of the process of
substantiation.
Transubstantiation. That's when the priest says, "Now this is the body." It's turning the bread into the flesh, and then it is the flesh when you consume it.
Right. So
they kind of really gloss over that in catechism class so that the 8-year-olds don't freak out before their first Holy Communions. At least they did in mine.
So
they didn't really dwell on the fact that you're eating Jesus.
No. They're like, oh, they're very holy. This is about it.
I think they told us like what it was supposed to be, and that like that was a thing. But we just all were like, okay, so it's a metaphor. Right. And like you're 8. You're not going to be like, so it's a metaphor. You're just like, okay.
Right, exactly.
I got to memorize all these prayers before I can go. Like, I got a lot of stuff to do. I'm not worried about this.
I got
You mean I get to sip wine?
That's right.
And they're like, no, it's the blood. And I'm like, tastes like Franzia. I did not know that at 8, actually, but...
And isn't it a little risque? Isn't this a wild activity for me to be doing on Sunday at church, no less?
Also, like, the grossest thing about the Catholic Church is that if you take the communion, the wine... Like, you drink out of it, and then they just, like, wipe the little...
And you turn the cup.
And they turn the cup. But so it goes all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they clean them.
Eventually, afterwards, yes.
So, like, you want to be at the beginning of Mass, because then you get the clean cup.
Yeah, exactly, because otherwise, they don't clean until after Mass.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, after... Like, I never knew, because I didn't do communion.
Mm-hmm.
Because that going through the dishwasher.
Right. You're like, how good of a clean is this person going to do?
How clean is this chalice? As someone with food allergies, that was sketch as hell.
That's true. But I mean, to bring back around to transubstantiation, you can see why the writers are actually really clever of being like, yeah, we have an entire feast about consuming other people's flesh.
Yeah, it's great. And then they even have a Last Supper for her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Yes, it's called the Last Supper.
Mm-hmm.
But Prudence says she'll be transubstantiated and will be part of the Coven's body forever, and she'll be part of the Dark Lord's heart forever. Sabrina asks, well, okay, but what if that's not actually what happens after you die? And Prudence asks what she believes, Sabrina believes, and Sabrina's like, well, has no answer, and Prudence says, how sad for you not to have faith in anything. Sabrina gets woken up by loud music upstairs and goes upstairs to find a witch orgy. It's like, God damn it.
In Ambrose's room?
Yes, in Ambrose's room with the weird sisters, Luke, Ambrose, and Nick. Nick asks her to join them, but also offers to go to her room instead with just the two of them. And Prudence eventually is just like, either join or leave.
Get in or get out.
Uh-huh.
Which, honestly, very generous queen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like, with all the drama they've had, she could have been like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You're not invited. It is a little weird because her cousin's there. Yeah.
But also her adopted sisters, Prudence also, is not being the allegations that she actually hates Sabrina. She's mostly just like, can you drop your weird obsession with mortals, and then we could all be friends.
Exactly.
Then we could do fun things together.
I do love that. Like what she says, she's like, yeah, and I invited Nick because he's horny as a toad.
Yes.
Which made me it's like such a fun turn of phrase. I mean, it's something we've heard before, but it just makes me giggle. Uh-huh. And then that he's like, yeah, I'll stay, I'll go. Like, you tell me where to be.
Exactly.
This man is so...
He's down.
Uh-huh. He's like, I don't believe in this feast of feast things, but I'm going to come over from the orgy.
Yeah, there's some other feasts going on. The next morning, Sabrina tells Prudence that all life is precious. Okay.
Whoa.
That's not what she says.
That's not what she says.
She says that you should value
You are not
life.
allowed to listen to podcasts anymore. You've been cut off.
That's the worst. My God. Okay.
Sorry.
She tells Prudence that she should value the life she has, and not just give it over to be consumed by the coven.
Yes,
and
that this basically woman or young adult or teenager with a full life
should value the life.
Should value the life she has.
And Prudence counters.
This is a pro-choice podcast.
Yes, it is. Prudence counters like, oh, well, even my immortal life? That's very much like YouTube conservative owns liberal. Look at this sick response I got. What a zinger. Sabrina says she's going to school, and Prudence like, well, you have to wait on me. Like, you don't get to do that. And Sabrina's like, well, I mean, at high school, there will be plenty of boys for you to torment. And Prudence is like, okay, I'll go.
Vibes. Respect.
Principal Hawthorne goes to talk to Miss Wardwell, and he like gets all weird and gross about her and asks her to come over during the Thanksgiving holiday, and she declines.
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina introduces her mortal friends to Prudence. The friends, and she's like, what the hell? These are not boys to torment. What the hell? And she's like, just meet my friends.
Yeah, it's very cute that Sabrina's like, I just want you to be my friends first.
The friends all talk about their family histories. Susie's ancestors, Dorothea, help witches, although she doesn't actually know they're witches. And Prudence is like, oh, yes, she was a true ally. Harvey's like, I found out some pretty messed up about like my family. We like took over the mines on a land grab from some people here. She's like, oh, you're from from the hill.
The
people.
Von Kunkel family.
And Prudence like, oh, you're part of the genocide, Von Kunkels. You're some real genocide white people, and like I can't believe, like I hate you so much. Your family committed atrocities, and starts to yell at him. So Sabrina rushes him out.
Witch hunter. Harvey's a witch hunter. It's very much Vampire Diaries when Elena's brother ends up being a vampire.
Yes. Isn't the vampire hunters, there's only like so many, and
yeah,
then one dies,
and then one
and
dies
one.
and the other one activates.
Exactly. Like the Manchurian Candidate.
What would have happened if he had been turned into a vampire before?
Right. Would have just been voided or something. Wait, can he not be turned? Is that what it is? I think, isn't there some mechanism that vampire hunters can't be turned?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because it's like an actual like thing. It's not like you just choose to be a vampire hunter.
No, you are a vampire hunter.
Yeah.
You are chosen. Anyway, not the point.
Yeah. And then he literally can't like stop himself from trying to kill him. Prudence is upset about school and Harvey being a witch hunter, and Wardwell appears behind them and asks to be in private. In Wardwell's office, Sabrina tries to get Wardwell to talk Prudence into backing out of the Feast of Feasts, and Prudence is like, who the hell is this that we can just talk about all our secret things here? Wardwell says, I did my research. There's a witch that lives in Moon Valley in the Greendale Woods. She was once a queen, but rejected it. If we want to go talk to her, and Prudence is like, okay, well, if we do, I want my sisters with me. Hilda gives Connor's urn to his mom. Ambrose asks if there's any leads into Connor's death. She found a box of Connor's stuff and thinks he was part of a satanic cult. And Ambrose is like, well, I can see the box for you and maybe I can help. The field trip out to Moon Valley sets off, and Wardwell calls on the witch, Desmelda, who's the one who lives in the hut out there. She says she ran from her high priest because she was selected to be queen as a child, and the high priest was extremely creepy and tried to force her.
He tried to sexually assault her.
Exactly. And so she ran away. Prudence says that has nothing to do with me, and Blackwood is not asking any of that of me. And Sabrina says, but like, do you see what you just said there? You didn't say the Dark Lord is asking anything of you for the Feast of Feasts. You're saying Blackwood is. The Kinkles go out hunting in Moon Valley and find a deer, and Grandpa says, boy, you should do the honors. Prudence pushes back and says Blackwood raised her like a daughter, and she wants to be queen. They hear a gunshot, and Desmelda tells them to leave and never come back. The witches come upon the deer body, but find out that it was a familiar, actually, that was killed. Wardwell hands them string, and they form a pentagon to turn invisible as the Kinkles round the corner. They look for a deer, but can't find it, and Sabrina's upset to see Harvey out there being a hunter. The Weird Sisters want atonement for the killing of the familiar, and Sabrina says, keep away from him, he's not a killer. And Prudence says, how is your faith in Harvey more valid than mine? Roz brings Susie to meet Nana, who says, hello there, handsome fella. And then Roz corrects Nana, but Susie's like, it's okay. Roz asks how they got the cunning, and Nana says, generations ago, we accused a woman of being a witch, and the witches cursed the family with blindness. She doesn't know if the curse gave them the cunning or brought out what was already there, but Roz will eventually lose her vision, but the cunning will allow her to see things others cannot. Sabrina comes home and finds Harvey there waiting for her. He talks about how he couldn't shoot the deer and his grandpa shot it instead of him, and he wishes that he stopped his grandpa from even doing it, and Sabrina hugs him and says he's not like them, and she chants a spell while she hugs him. Sabrina comes inside and Zelda needs her help with Lady Blackwood, who's downstairs. Lady Blackwood has been having pains and had blood coming down her leg. Sabrina brought down tea for her, and Constance worries it's poison. And Zelda's like, no, your blood level, your blood pressure is just high. Have you been spellcasting lately? And Constance says, well, she had to. And turns towards Sabrina as if Sabrina would understand. She says the Weird Sisters are conspiring against her, and she had to hurt them first because so that Blackwood's other children are no threat. Interesting. Later, Zelda wonders if Blackwood has illegitimate children. Children of a high priest, whether legitimate or not, could still assume the mantle of high priest. Sabrina runs up to Prudence after this and says she thinks Constance wants her dead and wonders if she is Faustus's child. Prudence doesn't listen to her and asks for proof. Sabrina says Lady Blackwood was holding the lottery box and asks if Prudence wants to know the truth. And Prudence asks how to proceed, and Sabrina mentions a Last Supper. Susie reads through Dorothea's diary and suddenly sees her in her room, but she doesn't speak, and then Susie wakes up and realizes it was a dream. Harvey and Tommy are the only Kinkles not passed out from being drunk on Thanksgiving and enjoying a nice meal. Sabrina invites the Blackwoods.
Oh, nice meal. Is that they're microwaved?
Yeah, they're hungry, man. Sabrina invites the Blackwoods for pre-Feast of Feast dinner. Wardwell drinks wine alone and gets a knock at the door, and it's takeaway. It's actually the pizza boy, and she invites him in. And the pizza boy is from Persephone's Pizza. Good stuff.
We love that.
Hilda helps Sabrina make a cake with something added to it. Constance wants to abstain from eating it after the meal, but Zelda says, nonsense, you're eating for 3 now, and eventually gets her to have the cake. Constance turns to Faustus for approval, and he does. Sabrina, they all eat the cake, and then Sabrina says she'll miss Prudence when she's gone. Constance says she won't, and then they'll be better off without her, and is surprised by what she's saying. Sabrina then starts to question Constance, and Constance says she cast a spell on the ballot box to make Prudence queen, and says the Weird Sisters are. She says Prudence are Faustus's bastards, and they're a threat to her children. Sabrina reveals Hilda made a truth cake, and then Prudence asks if Faustus is her father, and he says yes, and her mom's dead, and then and that she apparently killed herself after he wouldn't marry her. The other sisters ask if they're his daughters, and he's like, no, you're just orphans. It's very funny. So funny. Faustus wants to redraw for a new queen, and Sabrina says maybe the Dark Lord would have a new revelation that outlaws the feast, and reveals that everything that's said at this table will stay a secret, and Prudence still requests to sit on the throne of skulls. At Feast of Feast Mass, Faustus says Prudence can't serve as queen, as he also goes to say there won't be a Feast of Feast. But one of the witches, who I've skipped over in my summary, but she was one of the chosen, named Mildred, but was extremely devout and very upset that she wasn't chosen as queen, as kind of happens throughout the episode, then stands up and slits her own throat. And Faustus then says, all hail Mildred, queen of the feast, and the witches just start to devour her.
Except for Sabrina, Nick, and
Zelda.
Ambrose
and I didn't notice that Nick didn't.
Nick didn't either. He is standing by Sabrina. He is sitting next to her.
Ambrose and Luke watch movies together. Hilda comes in with news that Connor's parents killed themselves. Zelda and Sabrina come home, and Sabrina asks what would have happened if she was chosen and if Zelda would have let her be eaten. Zelda says never. Sabrina asks if it was the Dark Lord, even if it was the Dark Lord's will, and Zelda says it wouldn't have mattered. Harvey and Tommy go to clock in at the mines together. Prudence comes back to school and finds her sisters doing something suspicious. They lie that they're just praying, and so she walks away. Dorcas feels bad for not inviting her, and Agatha says it's better to leave her out of this. And they have 2 voodoo dolls that look like the Kinkle Boys, and they smash them with rocks. The end.
Okay, so I'm going to start at the end. Agatha and Dorcas do that without Prudence. Why? What is there now a rift there? Is there some sort of, well, she's Blackwoods and we're not? She's not a real orphan? Mm-hmm. She's not really like us?
Yeah.
Is it that they thought she'd be softer on the boys because of how Sabrina and Prudence were engaging and got along? I thought that was interesting. It starts to show a rift or a divide between them, and not necessarily there's not necessarily an animosity per se, but
she's no longer part of the inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I assumed it was we're not that Prudence always being the leader, and then them finding out that they're not all related and part of the same thing. They're oh, okay, so then we're not sisters, and kind of pushes them away.
Yeah, is it that, or is it we expected to lose her, so we're already like living our life without her?
Oh, yeah, that might actually be more accurate.
I have no idea. We'll have to see where it goes. I don't remember.
Right, because also like it would almost seem like you would think that Prudence would be soft or something that's like, oh, we can't have her do this, she wouldn't approve. But I don't know if we would really get that vibe from Prudence.
No, Prudence would be like, yeah, let's torture Sabrina's boyfriend.
Exactly. And also she was just as upset about the genocide, which is very fair.
Yes. The thing I want to talk about on this episode, or one of the things, is ritual sacrifice and how it is predominantly women.
Mm-hmm.
And how it is always sacrificing women. Women have to sacrifice for the group. It is not men having to sacrifice for the group. It is that women who tend to be more community driven to begin with then are the ones that have to also sacrifice to protect the community and feed the coven. And I just think that's very interesting in this dynamic where men have all the power and yet we can't eat Ambrose.
Right. Uh-huh. No, it's only the women of the coven.
It was
Isn't that
Freya, it's Mildred, it's
and that they've now set up this system where they're happy to.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing I want to go into is like this Mildred, Prudence, like people who believe so thoroughly they lose their common sense. Mm-hmm. And they lose their ability to discern between the divine and the diviner, if you will, like the person who's decided they're speaking for God. Don't trust anybody who thinks they're speaking for God.
No, I mean, that's something you brought up in, was it literally the last episode of like, but we don't know that Blackwood is actually speaking to the Dark Lord. And Sabrina makes that point in this episode too.
We do know that Blackwood believes his own bullshit though, because when he's eating the truth cake, because he's at least like playing with the crumbs on his plate, so we assume he ate it, that he's like, well, Satan wanted us to return to the old ways. You know, he's convinced that he is telling the truth and is correct.
Right.
He still can be wrong.
But at least he thinks he's telling the truth.
He thinks he's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what we can kind of discern from what we have right now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, the truth cake literally, I mean, because he wouldn't have told Prudence that he was their dad, essentially. And all that stuff there. We get the idea that that's all forced out.
And that her mother, about her mother.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought it was interesting with Mildred at the end that it doesn't stop with them being able to stop the Feast of Feasts. Mm-hmm.
That there won't be another Feast of Feasts, it seems, because Sabrina kind of threatened that of like, okay, well then this is the last one and we're not having it anymore. Mm-hmm. And if everything's set at this table, we'll stay at this table if that goes through. Like, oh, I think the Dark Lord told you that you're not doing this anymore is kind of what Sabrina alludes to. She blackmails him.
Right. But that's like to stop that night.
But it's to end the feast. She says specifically to end the Feast of Feasts, like to end it completely.
Right. But I wonder if like that could even happen.
I think it can, because you wouldn't put the entrails out. Like if you don't, you can't stop the train in motion, but can you stop it from picking back up? Like if all the momentum dies out after this and they didn't do it for so long, it's really easy, I think, for them to fall back into the pattern of not doing it again.
Yeah. So, because I think my question would be for this is like, is Blackwood actually going to put that down? Because he would, as a leader of the church, I would assume, because of the way this is now operated under him and how many like devout people that we kind of see like participating in this, like everybody's very involved and very excited for this feast to happen in this celebration. So it'd have to be it would have to be like him essentially getting, I got another revelation from the Dark Lord.
That's exactly what Sabrina's telling him to do.
Right. But like he doesn't get to do that in the scene. So I'm like, does it continue? Because he wasn't able to put a stop to it there. He rolls with it because he sees how the crowd is going.
Well, because Mildred, they've all been starving themselves. Yeah. It's you have a feral crowd. Mm-hmm. I think that's very different than like they won't fast next time. They won't even start that way.
Yeah, but I think because it's such a important practice.
But it's not. It's not an important practice because they didn't do it the entire time that Edward was the high priest.
But it seems a very important practice now.
But like all things, like it's like, okay, you celebrate this now, it's over. You're not thinking about it again until it comes up again. And when they're that level of like immortal and long lived, like, do you think they're really like counting down the days until the Feast of Feast again? I don't think they care.
I think I'm thinking of this like in the way of like
I think Mildred cares. Like, I think there's going to be like a small collection of people that care, but I think the majority of the coven is not going to care.
I think I'm just thinking of like, again, like relating to like the Catholic Church, like people don't change unless there's like a specific thing coming down from like say the Vatican or the Pope or stuff to like actually change.
They don't
how you
change
do the
when they do
practices.
that.
See, there you go. That's it. Kind of what I'm relating to.
But that's different because the things that they're changing are on like a more regular daily cadence. This is like if the Vatican was like, okay, we're not having Christmas anymore,
right?
It would be different because Christmas is a commercialized holiday that impacts multiple religions and is not just this small community thing. And I think that because they didn't do it for so long before, it's very easy to say, oh, now the Dark Lord wants to prevent any deaths because we need to be as strong as possible or whatever. Like, I just don't.
Yeah, I think I just got a more pessimistic reading from the end of the episode where the feast and things still happen.
Well, it's because like, Mildred...
people are not so easily shifted.
It's because Blackwood isn't going to initiate the feast, but since Mildred killed herself, he is like, okay, we're going to... We have a ravenous, literally, crowd that we're going to... Like, what else are you going to do? Let her rot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's kind of their mentality on it. Obviously, I don't condone cannibalism. I feel like I need... It sounds... I'm like, what are you going to do besides eat her?
I mean, she's right there. You're hungry. Like, wait.
But that's literally what I think it is. I just don't think they'll start the whole thing again. Yeah. That's my take on it. I think Blackwood will not pick it up. I think he'd be more afraid of the information of what Constance did and how that's an embarrassment on him that his wife was able to tamper with something and to decide the Dark Lord's will, and how it makes him look weak, and how if he's fathering illegitimate but not really children, like all of this, like he's not willing to let himself appear that way to the public, and Sabrina holds too much information and power. Now, if Sabrina's not around, would he have the Feast of Feasts? Sure.
Yeah. It just kind of read to me when everything goes to shit in front of Sabrina again. It's like, oh, people are not so easily moved off of like important practices. And I think it is an important practice in their
I think it's
tradition.
The opposite. I think it's opportunistic. I think it is.
I think it could be both.
I think looking at it, it's Sabrina. I think it's an important scene because Sabrina is realizing that while she could save Prudence, she cannot save everyone from this sort of mental toxicity. But I do think the rule will still change. Like, I don't think that Blackwood's going to initiate it. He's just not going to stop things like this. And I think there's a difference. I don't think that makes him good. I don't think that makes him even like a decent human being, but
no, I'm not. Yeah, I would never go that far.
But I think it shows that the rule can change and people won't immediately react, but over time they will not. I think it's kind of like the inevitability of like, well, it's 2 episodes 2 in a row where Sabrina tries to fix something and it still ends in a death, a loss of life. And that is really hard for her, probably mostly because of her mortal side. And so it's really playing with that for her. So I think it has more to do with that than like the state of the coven. And I think it also shows how little power Blackwood has in the moment. So that unless he claims he's got a proclamation directly from the Dark Lord right now, they're going to do this. And so all he can do to maintain an illusion of control is sanctify it.
Yeah.
But I don't think he would initiate it again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because we're in agreement on, I think, everything from except for that.
It's okay to be wrong. Just kidding. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is Harvey. Harvey is a colonizer. He's a witch hunter. But he can't shoot the deer. That was actually a familiar.
Yeah. Harvey really coming to terms with like, okay, how how do I deal with how do I move forward as a person in this world where with this like extremely terrible background of my history?
Mm-hmm.
How do
It's very funny. It's very white white person, especially like white boy being like, oh,
yeah,
this is not good. I'm not bad. Am I bad?
Is coming to terms with your white privilege, 100% white male privilege. So I really like the storyline. I think that's great. I mean, to a ridiculous degree, but Harvey's such a good POV for that because he is kind of the soul, and so like, but he's okay to share it with his like friends. And he's like, yeah, like this is like we found out some really messed up stuff about my family. Like he knows it's wrong from the jump, but he's just like not at the point where he feels it, where he's strong enough to like stop his family from doing things. I mean, this one's a more minor thing because hunting is just, you know, more basic and legitimized practice and all that. But he still feels bad for not stopping his grandpa from doing it.
Definitely. I also, the other thing, like back to religion slightly, I want to talk about was how this religion that is ran by men and ran by a dark lord is all about pitting women against each other. It's competing for who gets to get eaten, which is batshit. It's constant fearing Prudence and what Prudence's existence does on the impact of her child, her unborn children. It's this constant like, oh, well, even though the person who did the bad thing is Blackwood is the one who brought the Feast of Feasts back. Blackwood is the one who had affairs. Blackwood is the problem, and yet it's constantly women fighting because of the things that Blackwood did. Even Prudence and Sabrina don't agree because of Blackwood. Even like he is the problem.
Yeah.
And it's just like especially this episode too, even like Mildred being jealous of the other women who get picked, like and her sacrificing herself. Or when Agatha and Dorcas are like, oh, Prudence is so lucky, like she's always lucky, you know, like it's very pitting women against each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's how the patriarchy maintains power.
Yeah. Hey, nail on the head. I don't know if I have much else to say about that.
Perfect. Is there anything else you want to say about the episode?
I do like that Susie's ancestors just undeniably like, oh, Dorothea was great. Exactly.
And she's got like a very Amelia Earhart vibe right now.
Yes. She does look like a pilot, like an old pilot. So we'll learn more about Dorothea.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I said my piece on the cunning. I feel a little weird about it, but yeah. Playing with some things, but you know, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting too that they chose to do that when I think you could have done it differently, because like it's okay for like Roz to have magic of sort. Like it's okay for like some of the mortals to have some other type of magic, but like did we have to play in that trope?
100%. I don't think so. And I think
is it an attempt to rectify the trope? I think sometimes people misguidedly try to like take a trope and then like make it better. Does that make sense? Like we're gonna do that, but we're gonna do it right.
Right. We want to give Roz powers, so like we'll play with this,
but we're not gonna do it in like the bad way. And it's like, but we're still alluding towards the
yeah. And I think
it's hard.
Yeah, they make some changes later in the series, which I think is probably like, well, we didn't go quite the right way.
So, agreed.
That's it though. I think this was my favorite episode so far. The chapter 7 specifically. It was great.
I love it. You like the Feast of Feasts?
I do. Yeah.
I do. I love it. I always remember the orgy.
Exactly.
Because the Nick just being like, oh, where? Tell me where.
Where are you going?
Are we going?
Can I come with?
Yeah.
And you know, just a good little of how it's like playing with like Catholicism. I think that's really fun.
Definitely. It's very good. Well,
you can find this podcast on all your audio podcast platforms of choice at Dead Ends. You can also find it on YouTube, where you can see the aforementioned boxes and the apartment for one last time at dead_ends. You can also find it. Sorry, you can comment on YouTube. We love talking to people in the comments there. And also, if you don't want to leave a comment, but you still want to mention something for us to talk about on the podcast, you can send an email to deadendspcast@gmail.com. And then you can also follow us on Blue Sky at dead-ends.bisky.social for updates on things on the show.
Well, not today, Satan.
Not today.
And we love you.
We love you so much.